Miss Lee, put the folder down.
It's down. What do you
What do
want?
we know about the payments you've been stealing from your probationers?
For years, probationers in Jackson, Mississippi trusted LaCosta Lee with the fines standing between them and a jail cell. Every single one of them was wrong too. She's in handcuffs before this footage ends.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You took 2 years worth of payments and they never made it to the court.
Okay, so what, are you arresting me or are you just gonna stand?
She would not get the chance to explain. Within days of that confrontation, the Mississippi Attorney General's office would seize her files, her bank records, and a composition notebook tucked in her desk drawer that documented every theft over 5 years. 43 probationers. More than $4,000 siphoned from the people least able to lose it. 7 counts of embezzlement. And a paper trail of receipts she had handed her victims herself. Receipts she never expected anyone to actually keep. Before we go any further, would you have noticed if your court fines were quietly disappearing? Tell me in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now. We expose people who exploit positions of trust every single week. LaCosta Renee Lee was born in Jackson, Mississippi in 1979. Her father, Carlton Lee, worked as a corrections officer at Central Mississippi Correctional Facility for 26 years. Her mother, Brenda, served lunches at Galloway Elementary School, 4 blocks from their house on Bailey Avenue. Money was tight. It was never absent. The Lees owned their home. By the time LaCosta was 12, she had already announced what she wanted to be when she grew up. Her father came home in his uniform every night. She would pretend to read his department manual at the kitchen table, while her mother fried catfish on the stove. She told her 6th grade teacher she wanted to work in the courts. The teacher wrote it down in a yearbook entry that Brenda Lee kept inside a Bible for the next 30 years. LaCosta graduated from Jim Hill High School in 1997 with a 3.4 GPA and a partial scholarship to Jackson State University. She studied criminal justice. Her senior thesis examined recidivism rates among first-time misdemeanor offenders in Hinds County. Her advisor noted in his evaluation that she had an unusually clear sense of how the system fails the people inside it. She graduated in 2001. She married a barber named Donovan Pickering that summer. They had a daughter in 2003 and a son in 2006. Her first job out of college was as a court clerk at the Hinds County Justice Court. She filed paperwork, processed bonds, sat through hours of misdemeanor arraignments. She earned $26,000 a year. She stayed for 9 years. Her supervisors rated her as consistently meets expectations and works well independently. She was passed over for 2 promotions. She never complained. In 2010, Donovan lost his shop. They had remortgaged the house twice already. The kids were in private school on a tuition deal her mother had quietly been paying down for them. By 2013, the family was carrying $48,000 in credit card debt across 6 accounts. In early 2015, LaCosta saw a job posting on the Court Programs Inc. website. The company contracted with municipal and justice courts throughout Mississippi to supervise misdemeanor probationers. They needed a field officer in the Hinds County region. The position paid $41,000 a year, with a take-home laptop and a small mileage stipend. She applied. She was hired within 3 weeks. The training lasted 4 days, conducted at a hotel conference room in Pearl. She passed the certification exam with a 92. Her first office was a converted storage room behind the Jackson Municipal Court. A folding desk, a locked filing cabinet, a printer that jammed twice a week. The job was simple on paper. Meet with assigned probationers monthly, verify employment, collect fees and fines on behalf of the court, submit reports. She was good at it. The supervising court administrator wrote in her first annual review that she was professional, organized, and demonstrates genuine empathy for the population she serves. She was given an additional caseload 6 months in. By 2017, she was handling more than 200 active probationers across 3 justice courts. The Lee family caught up on their credit cards. They refinanced the house at a lower rate. Brenda Lee retired. Carlton Lee retired the year after. From the outside, everything had stabilized. Then her son was diagnosed with a rare seizure disorder. Court Programs Inc. is a private company headquartered in Brandon, Mississippi. Founded in the late 1990s, it operates under contracts with dozens of municipal and justice courts across the state. The model is straightforward. Courts hand off the supervision of misdemeanor probationers, DUIs, simple assaults, petty thefts, bad checks, to the company. The company assigns a contracted probation officer. The officer manages compliance, monitors employment, collects fees, and reports back to the court. The probationer pays for everything. A monthly supervision fee, typically $40 to $60, court-imposed fines, paid down over the term of probation, restitution to victims when ordered, drug testing fees, late fees, reinstatement fees if probation is revoked and reinstated. In Mississippi, a probationer who falls behind on payments can be jailed for non-payment. The probation officer recommends the violation. The court issues the warrant. The system runs almost entirely on the probationer's compliance and the probation officer's word. Cash was accepted. Money orders were accepted. Some courts allowed personal checks. The probationer received a handwritten or printed receipt at the end of every transaction. The funds were supposed to be logged into the company's case management system within 24 hours, then deposited into the court's account on a weekly schedule. Verification was thin. The contracted officers worked alone in small offices, without supervisors physically present. Audits occurred annually at most, and only on a sample of files. The receipt books were ordered through a regional supplier and kept in the same locked drawer the officers controlled themselves. A missing receipt slip raised no flags. A discrepancy in a single account looked like a probationer's bookkeeping error. And probationers, by definition, were not the kind of witnesses the system tended to believe. The probationers trusted LaCosta because they had no choice. She held the recommendation that could send them to jail. They handed her cash across her folding desk. They thanked her on the way out. She wrote them receipts. The first time LaCosta Lee kept a probationer's money, it was July of 2018. Her son's medication was $1,100 a month, and the insurance company had just denied a renewal. A probationer named Reginald Booker, a 41-year-old construction worker on probation for a simple assault, handed her $300 in 20s. She wrote him a receipt. She marked his account as paid in the case management system. She drove home that night with the money in her purse. Nothing happened. No flag, no phone call, no question. The next month, she did it twice. Then 4 times. Then she stopped counting. The pattern she developed was deliberate. She targeted probationers paying in cash. She targeted the ones least likely to keep their receipts, people with unstable housing, people who treated the receipt slip as proof to be discarded once the next payment cleared. She avoided money orders. She avoided checks. She always wrote a receipt, because refusing to write one would have triggered a complaint. She kept 2 sets of records. The official entries in the company's case management system reflected partial payments, marked down balances, and small adjustments she could justify if questioned. The second set lived in a black and white composition notebook in her desk drawer. Each page listed a probationer's name, the date, the amount she had collected, and the amount she had pocketed. She used a green pen for the official figure and a black pen for the actual. Over the next 4 years, the entries piled up. Tameka Sanders, 26 years old, on probation for shoplifting baby formula, paid $200 in May of 2019. LaCosta logged 80. Antoine Phillips, a barber on probation for a bad check charge of $1,800, paid faithfully every month for 22 months. Half of every payment went into the notebook. Christina Day, a domestic violence survivor on probation after a retaliation charge, paid $125 in cash on a Friday afternoon in October of 2020. Her receipt said $125. The company system said $60. LaCosta did not get rich. The total she stole over 5 years would eventually be calculated at $4,313.75. The number was small enough to seem unremarkable, and that was the point. She skimmed enough to cover the medication copays, the school activity fees, the orthodontist payments, the car insurance shortfalls. She funneled it through her household budget, and her household budget absorbed it without a trace. The signs were all there for anyone looking. Probationers complained quietly to public defenders, to family members, to anyone who would listen, that their balances never seemed to come down. One man told his wife that he had paid his entire fine 3 times over, and the court still said he owed money. His wife told him to stop arguing and just keep paying. A receptionist at one of the justice courts noticed in 2021 that LaCosta's deposit envelopes seemed lighter than her caseload would suggest. She mentioned it once to the court clerk. The clerk shrugged. Court programs handled their own books. LaCosta knew the risks. She kept the notebook locked in the drawer. She never spent the money on anything visible. She never traveled. She never bought a new car. She drove the same 2014 Ford Fusion to work every day, and she answered her phone on the first ring when probationers called with questions about their balances. She also knew, on some level, that the notebook would end her if it was ever found. She kept it anyway. Quick question. How do you think you would react if you found out the person collecting your court fines was pocketing your money? Sound off below. And if you haven't subscribed, do it now. The next part of this story is the part she never thought would come. The unraveling started with a man named Antoine Phillips and a manila folder full of receipts. Phillips was the barber. Probation for an $1,800 bad check charge stemming from a 2018 dispute with a beauty supply wholesaler. He had paid LaCosta steadily, $50, $75, sometimes $100 at a time, across 22 months. He kept every receipt in a folder his wife had given him for his birthday in 2019. She had told him to keep them because he was the kind of man, she said, who would lose his own head if it wasn't attached. In April of 2023, Antoine Phillips was pulled over on Terry Road for a broken brake light. The officer ran his name. A warrant came back. Failure to pay court-ordered fines. Hinds County Justice Court. The bond was $1,500. He spent a night in the Raymond Detention Center. His wife brought the manila folder to the bond hearing the next morning. The public defender, a young attorney named Erica Whitfield, spread the receipts across her desk and ran the numbers. Antoine had paid $2,415. The court had recorded payments totaling $1,190. Whitfield filed a complaint with the court administrator that afternoon. The court administrator forwarded it to Court Programs, in Key. Court Programs assigned an internal auditor. The auditor was a regional manager named Patricia Vance. She had been with the company for 11 years. She had seen sloppy bookkeeping before. She had seen probationers misremember their own payments. She expected to find a paperwork error and write a polite memo. She started with Antoine Phillips's file. The receipts didn't match. She pulled LaCosta Lee's 3 other active caseloads, Jackson Municipal Court, the Justice Court of Hinds County, and a small caseload from Clinton. She spot-checked 20 files. 12 of them had discrepancies between what the probationers had paid and what the company had recorded. She drove to Jackson on a Wednesday morning in early May of 2023. She told LaCosta she was running a routine quarterly audit. She asked to see the receipt books and the active case files. LaCosta handed them over without hesitation. While Patricia worked at the folding desk, LaCosta sat across from her, calm, professional, asking polite questions about her drive in from Brandon. Patricia found the composition notebook on the 3rd hour. It was in the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, behind a cardboard accordion folder of expired drug test forms. She opened it. She read 3 pages. She closed it. She did not say anything. She told LaCosta she needed to take a few files back to the home office for additional review. She loaded the case files, the receipt books, and the composition notebook into a banker's box. She drove back to Brandon. She did not call LaCosta. She called the Mississippi Attorney General's Office, Public Integrity Division. The Public Integrity Division opened a case file the following Monday. The lead investigator was a woman named Cassandra Merriweather, a former Hinds County prosecutor who had been with the AG's office for 9 years. She started where every embezzlement case starts, with the paper. The composition notebook contained 134 entries spanning 61 months. Each entry listed a probationer, a date, a recorded amount, and an actual amount. The difference between the two columns added up to $4,313.75. The arithmetic was LaCosta's own. The handwriting was hers. Patricia Vance had compared it to signed timesheets to be sure. Merriweather subpoenaed LaCosta's bank records. Across the same 61 months, the Lee household checking account showed 46 cash deposits ranging from $40 to $210. Each deposit corresponded, within 72 hours, to a notebook entry. The pattern was machine precise. She subpoenaed the case management system logs. LaCosta had logged into specific probationer accounts on the same days she had collected payments and made manual adjustments to balance lines hours after the official deposit was reported. She subpoenaed the receipts. Court programs had retained carbon copies of everything LaCosta had written for the past 3 years. 43 probationers' receipts did not match the company's recorded payments. Merriweather began contacting the probationers. Most of them were reluctant. They had finished probation. They did not want to relive it. They certainly did not want to file an affidavit against the woman who used to hold their freedom in her hands. Tameka Sanders agreed to testify. So did Antoine Phillips. So did Reginald Booker, the construction worker who had been her first. The text messages Merriweather obtained from LaCosta's personal phone, recovered under warrant in late summer of 2023, were not as damning as the notebook, but they painted a picture. Messages to her husband, dated across years, asking him to deposit specific amounts in cash before a bill was due. Messages to her daughter's orthodontist confirming a payment plan. Messages to a pharmacy in Ridgeland confirming a prescription pickup. There was one message from June of 2021, sent at 11:47 p.m., that the prosecutor would later read aloud at sentencing. LaCosta to her sister. I keep thinking they're going to figure it out. Every Monday, I think this is the week. Then Monday goes by and nobody says anything. Her sister had not responded. The arrest took place on the morning of October 17th, 2023. 2 investigators from the Mississippi Attorney General's office arrived at the Jackson Municipal Court Probation Office at 9:14 a.m. LaCosta was at her folding desk, reviewing a probationer's drug test results. She was wearing a navy blazer and a cream blouse. Her name tag was clipped to her left lapel. The investigators were Cassandra Merriweather and a second agent named Wendell Childers. They identified themselves. They told her they had a warrant for her arrest on 7 counts of embezzlement. LaCosta did not stand up. She looked at the warrant for nearly a minute without speaking. Then she set it on the desk and folded her hands. You don't understand the pressure I was under, she said. Merriweather asked her to clarify. My son has a seizure disorder. The medication is not optional. The insurance kept dropping the renewal. I was paying $1,100 a month out of pocket for 2 years. Do you know what that does to a household? Childers told her she was not required to make a statement. I never took from the ones who couldn't afford it. I knew their files. I knew who could absorb it and who couldn't. I never took from a single mother. I never took from anyone on disability. I took from the ones who would barely notice. Merriweather asked her if she had taken from Tameka Sanders. LaCosta paused. That was a mistake. I didn't know. I corrected it the next month. You took $80 more from her the next month, Merriweather said. LaCosta did not respond. Ms. Lee, do you want to keep talking, or do you want to call an attorney? She closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, she looked at the folding desk where she had collected cash from probationers for 5 years. I'd like to call my husband, she said. She was placed in handcuffs at 9:31 a.m. She was walked out the side door of the courthouse by 9:38. She did not say another word until she reached the booking desk at the Hinds County Detention Center. The Hinds County Grand Jury indicted LaCosta Renee Lee on 7 counts of embezzlement on January 11th, 2024. Each count corresponded to a specific probationer who had been willing to testify. The maximum exposure under Mississippi Code Section 97-23-19 was 20 years per count. Her attorney was a Jackson defense lawyer named Marcus Whitfield, no relation to the public defender who had filed the original complaint. Whitfield negotiated for 10 months. He argued mitigation. He cited her clean record, her family obligations, her son's medical condition, the relatively modest dollar amount. He pushed for a fully suspended sentence and a restitution order. The Attorney General's office pushed back. The dollar amount was modest, prosecutors argued, but the breach of trust was foundational. LaCosta Lee had stolen from the very people the system had charged her with rehabilitating. She had gambled their freedom against her own household budget. She had written them receipts, knowing those receipts would never be honored. The aggravating factor was not the money. It was the population. She pleaded guilty to all 7 counts on October 8, 2024. The sentencing hearing was held on November 14, 2024, in Hinds County Circuit Court before Judge Adrienne Hartwell Boudreaux. 3 of LaCosta's victims appeared in person. Tameka Sanders read first. She had brought her 4-year-old daughter to the courtroom. She told the court that for 2 years she had skipped meals to make sure her probation payments were on time, because she had been told that missing a payment meant going to jail, and going to jail meant losing custody. She had paid $840 to LaCosta Lee. The court had received $410. Antoine Phillips spoke second. He told the court he had spent a night in jail because of payments LaCosta had pocketed. He told the court that his wife had cried at the bond hearing because she had thought, for one terrible morning, that her husband had been lying to her about the money for 2 years. Judge Hartwell Boudreaux delivered her sentencing statement before the gallery. She addressed LaCosta directly. Ms. Lee, the people who walked into your office did so under a court order. They had no choice but to trust you. You were not a bystander to their rehabilitation. You were the system, in their eyes. Every dollar they handed you was a dollar they had earned with their freedom on the line. You did not take from a bank. You did not take from a corporation. You took from the people in this community with the least margin to be taken from. And you did it knowingly, deliberately, and over a period of years. The court does not accept the argument that household pressure justifies what you did. Many people in this room face household pressure. They do not steal from probationers. The judge sentenced LaCosta Lee to 20 years in the custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections, with 17 years suspended and 3 years to serve, followed by 5 years of post-release supervision. She ordered restitution in the amount of $4,313.75 and a separate fine of $3,000. LaCosta is currently incarcerated at the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility in Pearl, in the Women's Housing Unit. She is scheduled for release in late 2027. Court Programs, Inc. terminated its contract with the Hinds County Justice Court 3 months after her arrest. 2 other contracted officers in adjacent counties were placed under audit. 1 resigned before the review concluded. Tameka Sanders received a check for $240 from the company in March of 2025. She framed it. She did not cash it. This case was infuriating, but the case on your screen right now is the kind of betrayal that keeps you up at night. Click it now.